Hey guys, Spencer here, and we're going to talk yield nodes again. And I apologize that this all went down about 10, 12 days ago now, and I've not put out a video. And that's my bad. I was on the road when everything happened with yield nodes. And so this will be the video. We're going to explain three things. We're going to explain kind of what happened, what went down about a week and a half ago. We're going to explain why it happened, which I think a lot of people are skipping over in their videos, why exactly this happened with yield nodes. And then we're going to go into their plan to hopefully potentially fix what's gone down and get people their money back that they've put into yield nodes. All right, so first we're going to talk a little bit about what happened here. So an email went out about 2 weeks ago, and out of the blue, nobody had any warning. Yield nodes said, hey, we're switching over to Yield Nodes Pro. You can see right here, and you're like, what's Yield Nodes Pro? And then they said there's been a lot of selling pressure and things like that. They also mentioned that the exchanges Binance and Changely were holding on to their Bitcoin, meaning they weren't able to access their money for payouts and things like that. And they kind of went on through this really, really long email to say, with Yield Nodes Pro, we're going to be shutting down withdrawals. Okay, so they said no more withdrawals, which obviously was a huge shock to most people. And they said we're going to restructure everything over the next 6 months to a year to this new Yield Nodes Pro. And then we're going to give you guys NFTs. And they did all this fun stuff that really threw people through a loop. And they basically said we had no choice because we only had 10% of our money left that we owe to people. And a lot of people just really came out blindsided by this because this comes really less than a month or two after an audit where they said we've got 130% of all the money we owe. We've got plenty of money, no issues, right? So this really is out of the blue for most people. So let's talk about, I think, why it happened. So I'm still figuring and catching up on all this as well. But I've done a bunch of research, looked into all this. I've listened to all the interviews that Steve has done. He's the CEO of Yield Nodes. And here's what I think happened. So Yield Nodes made money by masternoding, right? They do a lot of masternoding and they make a lot of money. They masternoded their own coins, meaning they weren't out there masternoding all these other coins out there that have nodes, right? They use nodes specifically with their own coins, and a vast majority of all of this came from their primary coin, which is Sapphire. Now, not only did they master node Sapphire, but from what I understand, they were doing some price manipulation with Sapphire, meaning they were making sure they were buying Sapphire and selling Sapphire to make sure that the price remained steady or kind of slowly went up. And as long as Sapphire has a steady or increasing price, then you masternode Sapphire, right? You get paid in Sapphire, and that payout in Sapphire is actually worth, a little more each month, and it's worth definitely something each month. And so that's all good and great, right? They're masternoding Sapphire. They're making sure that Sapphire maintains a stable price and has a stable ecosystem, and that's keeping everything afloat. Now, that only works if Sapphire has volume, right? If people are buying and selling Sapphire and there's stuff happening, outside investors and people are buying and selling this coin, Sapphire. And so from what I understand, the volume and the demand for Sapphire dried up. No one outside of Yield Nodes was looking to buy or doing any kind of active trading with Sapphire, if I get it correctly, if what Steve says is correct. And so when all of this dried up, when all of this volume dried up, right, there was really no more demand for Sapphire. Now, Yield Nodes is getting paid out in Sapphire, right? They're masternoding and then taking these Sapphire coins. And if no one's buying those Sapphire coins, then they really can't sell them and then pay us out in USDT or pay us investors out in Bitcoin, right? Because the exchange, no one will buy the Sapphire. There's no exchange going on there. There's not enough volume to maintain the price. Now, they were able to fix this in the past, I believe, by kind of manipulating the price and using their Bitcoin reserves and stuff like that. But now they've got this issue where a lot of their Bitcoin reserves are getting held up in Binance and Changely. And so they can't do that quite as well as they used to do. So they've got all this Sapphire coin now, and they're still masternoding, right? But I'm sure they're making a lot less masternoding, and they're no longer able to exchange all this Sapphire coin for the important coins, the ones that we actually want, Bitcoin and USDT and things like that, USDC. And so that's where they realized suddenly there's no demand. We can't sell this Sapphire coin, or we're going to completely crash the price of Sapphire, and then we won't be able to do anything here, right? So instead they said, we're going to try to pause, and we'll kind of talk about what their plan is in the future. But they realized that they basically only had 10% of their original money left. And if they didn't pause pretty much immediately, they would run out of money and they'd have to pay everything out, and there'd be nothing they could do. They would pretty much be completely penniless, and there'd be nothing that they could do to enact any of their plans in the future, because all of that needs money. So I know we're all asking now, but wait, we were told there was an audit. All these people looked, right? And that's where I want to go into something very, very important, because I talked about the audit on 2 of my videos. I explained that there was an audit and that I felt really that was a really cool thing that they were auditing and having people come in and look at their books and stuff like that. So after the last audit, I was doing research and kind of thinking through this, and I thought, I thought about, well, where is this money, right? They're saying we've got 130% of reserves, and I wanted to know what that reserve was. Was that reserve Sapphire coin, right? The Sapphire coin that the demand could dry up pretty quickly, and Yieldnodes is kind of helping maintain this price for Sapphire coin, or was that in Bitcoin, right? Something that we know is going to have some value, hopefully, and that really can't be manipulated and won't tank to zero and all that fun stuff. And so I posted in the main Facebook group, you can see I posted asking people. I said, what after this audit, can someone speak to where these reserves are being held and what coin these reserves are being held in? All right, so you can see here that as I was starting to kind of worry this, I posted, this is July 27th in the main Yieldnodes group, and Liam Dyson is the one who runs that, and he attended the audit. So I said, what percentages of our reserves are in Bitcoin versus Sapphire, right? And so they had told us they were 30% above and beyond, and I was just curious kind of how that all, kind of where those ratios were. So the first thing, and this is just such a big lesson in investing, is the number of people that just attacked me, which is a pretty normal post here, right? The people that said, trust Yieldnodes, how dare you? You can see I screenshotted 3 of them. I didn't want to call out and let you see names come. But people, one guy said, we have so many suspicious and negative people in this group. Be happy and grateful. like as if asking a question is a terrible thing. You know, someone said, trust and verify. Good enough the 80s, good enough today. You either trust Yieldnodes or you don't. So anyway, we've got this terrible mindset in a lot of people that are in the Yieldnodes and in crypto in general, right? Where it's just like, how dare you ask questions, which is the craziest thing I've ever heard. I can't even fathom that mindset. But anyway, so I asked this question in the group, and you can see if I scroll down a little bit, someone posted this and said, James Pelton, who's another YouTuber who did attend the audit, confirmed in one of his Telegram groups that the reserves are in BC. You can see if I zoom in right here, someone had screenshotted something saying with James Pelton saying the reserves are in BTC, and then he said that he had made a video about it. This is where I failed. I didn't go and watch the video. I assume James explained in more detail, perhaps that a certain portion of the reserves were in BTC or something like that. I don't know. Maybe not. I'll have to go back and watch that video. But anyway, that's where the problem lay. So they didn't have, it sounds like a good chunk of their reserves were absolutely not in Bitcoin. A good chunk of their reserves were in Sapphire. And as Sapphire started to lose its dominance, right, it started to stop climbing, then you can see it started to tumble. And it started to tumble, and then they were unable to sell. There was nobody buying. They weren't able to sell for that price. And basically they knew that if they did sell, that they would tank the price of Sapphire. So instead they announced that, hey, we're going to cut out withdrawals. And of course, that tanked the price. Anyway, you can see it went from 90 cents all the way down here to about 4 cents. So I don't know quite. Maybe they had nothing else. They had no other options. It's kind of the idea that I'm getting here. There was no other options at that point. So they announced it, and they said, regardless of what the price of Sapphire does here, we're locking all of our Sapphire out, and we're not going to be selling it. And that way, when the price of Sapphire hopefully goes back up with the plan that we're going to talk about next, right, then they assumed that they would be able to fix it. Okay, so that takes us to the core issue. The core issue is they still have all this Sapphire, but no one's buying it. And now the value's dropped to pretty much nothing, right? And so that's why Yieldnodes is shut down. And so their plan, they want to keep doing what they're doing. I think they've got a good thing going with the way that their model works, but it does require outside interest to be interested in these coins. And so going to part 3 of this video where they're saying, how are we going to fix this? Here's their plan. Essentially, they want to add a backing, physical asset backing to Sapphire and to their whole ecosystem. And that way their coins actually have some value tied to them. And they think that that will bring people back into the ecosystem to trade their coins, and it'll bring back the demand for buying and selling their coins. Now, they've partnered up, and we're still kind of going through the details of this. They haven't verified this. They haven't had an auditor or something come through, which they say they will do to verify this. But they've partnered up with people with assets of up to $300 million is what they're claiming. And again, everything I'm saying here now at this point is coming from them, okay? And I'm just explaining it. So they claim that these partners who believe in what they can do, right? These partners believe that they can do this again if they just have some asset backing their coins. So these partners are giving them access to some of their assets. So these assets include like power hubs in Germany and Malta, like a photovoltaic, I don't know how to pronounce that, power plant in Germany, Italy, Iran, which a lot of people aren't happy with. And then a bunch of other things. You can see electric car charging projects, things like that. They're essentially going to try to bring these in as projects that are also connected to their coins. And then they hope that will, once again, create volume and create demand for their coins. And once that happens, they'll be able to once again start masternoding. They'll be able to do what they were doing before once more, and then they'll be able to resume making those payouts to all of their audience base, like me and you. Now, I think all of that makes sense. Like, I'm actually, when I look at that, I say, okay, I can see what you're saying. I see what went wrong, and I can't complain about it. I understood the whole model going in. I understood that there was a potential for complete loss, and so I'm okay with that. Now, the part that confuses me and the part that I'm still shaky on and kind of don't like is the way that they're going about it. I would want them to just continue the way that they are before, where I still have my dashboard. It's simple. I like that. But instead, they've said this. They said, to be able to do this, we're going to convert payments made and your balances into yield nodes, into NFTs, which will give you a subscription right to the shares in these assets. I assume let's say they have $300 million locked up in yield nodes. They take that $300 million. They say every dollar is one NFT or something like that, right? Or your NFT gets 1% or of the overall portion of this, and then they go hand out all these NFTs to all of us who own pieces of yield nodes, and then I assume they'll airdrop into your wallets the money as they start to make these yields again. Now, these NFTs, the reason I don't like it, there's a lot of people that don't like it, is they say they can be traded, but that's not really how NFTs work, right? You can't just say, hey, I have a $70,000 NFT or a $100,000 NFT or however much you have in yield nodes and say, come buy it for $70,000. It's a market. And right now the market's definitely not in their favor. There's not a ton of demand for yield nodes NFTs. And I would imagine if right now they handed out the NFTs that they would be selling for virtually nothing. So I don't love these NFTs. I don't love that there's no real value now, right? The only value of these NFTs is going to come not from yield nodes, but from how much other people are willing to pay for it, which is not great. And so they say that's the best way for them to go forth. I like everything about their plan except for the NFTs. They say they've consulted with economists and lawyers. That's what they have to do. I guess we'll have to see. But anyway, they're saying in about the next 6 months. So we'll pay attention through about March to May of next year, of 2023, and we'll watch how this plan goes forth as they start to bring these assets into the Decenemy ecosystem, and then as they start to launch these NFTs, how it plays out. The one thing I would add is there's not a lot that can be done at this point. There's small groups doing lawsuits and stuff like that. A lot of us have a ton of money in there. I have all my money in there. Didn't pull out my money, didn't know anything was going to happen as well. So a lot of us have money locked up in there. And really the best thing you can do is just see what they can do. You don't have to trust these guys. You don't have to do anything like that. But as far as like trying to demand that you get your money out or do a lawsuit, that's, in my opinion, likely not going to be super helpful in letting them do what they're going to do here and getting your money back. It might make you feel better and things like that. But I get the impression from the fact that if you go into here and you go to Yieldnodes, the CEO is sending out emails almost every other day now. They're doing a lot of damage control right now, which typically isn't what someone does in a rug pull. And so if someone's actually planning on taking your money and running away and disappearing, they're not behaving that way with the way they're communicating. And so that's my general thoughts. Their plan could work, it could not work, but I wouldn't say that their plan is to run off with the money and disappear. And so anyway, that's my thoughts with the whole Yieldnodes thing going on. This was something, a lot of us talked about, that there was a lot of good, but the potential for bad was there because a lot of their money came from what they were doing, right? A lot of money came from demand for their ecosystem and their coins and things like that. And a lot of us talked about, I think in one of the reviews that I did of them, I talked about how they have all these coins, but those coins don't have real world value yet. There's not anything really keeping those coins afloat except for Yieldnodes themselves. And so anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. You can let me know in the comments if you have questions. We'll try to get them answered. Everyone's kind of doing their best at this point who has money in Yieldnodes, me included, and we'll kind of keep you updated as this project moves forward.